Welcome back to the deep dive. Today I want you to imagine building this massive billion-dollar legacy in exactly 365 days.
Right. Just one single year.
Yeah, 1 year, you enter this incredibly saturated, really cutthroat market, and you completely disrupt the established aesthetic.
You change the whole game.
Exactly. You climb to the absolute #1 spot, you gather this army of fiercely devoted consumers, and then, at the precise moment your valuation peaks, you unplug the servers, lock the doors, and walk away forever.
Never to be heard from again.
Never.
I mean, it defies every traditional rule of business, right, and entertainment, and frankly, human ego. We are so conditioned to believe that success is this marathon. You grind, you peak, and then you just kind of hold on for dear life through this slow, inevitable decline.
Yeah, the slow fade.
Right. So choosing to engineer your own disappearance, that is something completely different.
And that is exactly the story we are unpacking today. We've been digging through a really fascinating stack of materials for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah. So much good stuff.
We've got academic encyclopedias, translated Japanese Wikipedia entries, exhaustive filmographies, and some incredibly nostalgic forum posts from the early internet.
Those were a trip to read.
They really were.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to understand this late 1990s pop culture phenomenon from the Japanese mature idol industry. We are looking at the meteoric rise and the very abrupt, mysterious exit of Akira Fubuki.
And what makes this deep dive so compelling is that we aren't just, looking at a timeline here. We are looking at a masterclass in the psychology of media consumption.
Right.
Her 12-month career is essentially this perfect laboratory for understanding parasocial relationships.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we go any further, I think we need to clarify what we actually mean by a parasocial relationship. For anyone unfamiliar with the term, just think of it as that completely one-sided yet deeply real emotional bond you form with a media figure.
Yeah, like you intimately know them.
Exactly. You feel like you know a podcaster or a celebrity or an idol, even though they honestly don't even know you exist. And to understand why Fubuki mastered this dynamic, we really have to start with the sheer dizzying velocity of her career.
Velocity is definitely the crucial baseline here in highly competitive entertainment spaces. And, I mean, the Japanese niche cinema and mature idol market of the late 90s was fiercely competitive. Breaking through usually takes years.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to build an audience through relentless, incremental exposure. You just grind. But Fubuki, she bypassed all of that.
Let's look at the actual timeline, because it moves like a bullet train. So she was born in Kanagawa, Japan on March 13th, 1978.
Okay.
Fast forward to October 1996. She's 17 years old. And she makes her debut as a Shashin Shu, which is, a photo book model.
Right.
And the release is titled Pistol, which I think is an incredibly evocative title. It suggests something just starting to bloom or open up.
It definitely signals a very specific introductory tone, but that photo book was honestly barely even a prelude. It was kind of like the seed funding stage.
Literally the very next month, November 1996, she makes her debut in the mature video industry. She stars in a release titled Dizziness under the Alice Japan label.
Just 1 month later.
1 month. And without pausing for a single breath, she drops another release in December 1996 titled Dressy for the AMXA label. So that's October, November, December.
Wow.
Bang, bang, bang. She goes from absolute obscurity to omnipresence in 90 days.
And the reason she could move at that kind of speed really comes down to a highly disruptive market entry. When you look at the landscape of 1990s Japanese idols, there was a very entrenched standard aesthetic.
Very specific look, yeah.
Exactly. The prevailing beauty ideal heavily favored pale skin and very traditional soft features. Fubuki broke that mold instantly. The encyclopedic records actually highlight her light brown skin and her exotic face as the primary drivers of her immediate popularity.
She was a visual pattern interrupt. If you're a consumer scrolling through a wall of VHS tapes, because remember, this is 1996, we are literally browsing physical video rental shelves, your eye is trained to just glide over the standard look.
Right, you're just scanning.
Yeah, scanning. And then you see Fubuki, and it stops you in your tracks. She essentially walked into a room where everyone was wearing white, and she was wearing neon blue.
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it. She offered this stark visual contrast that practically demanded attention. But And here is the critical pivot. In her story, grabbing attention with an exotic look only gets you a single transaction.
It gets them to rent that first tape.
Exactly. To build the kind of rabid, devoted fan base she acquired, you have to transition from a visual novelty to a psychological necessity.
Which brings us to January 1997 and a release titled Pink Breath. This is where that Silicon Valley startup analogy really locks in for me.
Oh, for sure.
She had the seed funding in October, the disruptive product launch in November, and by January, she is shifting her entire marketing strategy to build user attention.
Because the selling point for Pink Breath wasn't just her exotic appearance anymore. The marketing leaned entirely into her palpable, visible nervousness on camera. They were literally selling her hesitation.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the studios weren't just putting out random, disconnected, provocative movies, they were creating a serialized psychological narrative.
What's fascinating here is how Kjell Fornander, who's a researcher who has extensively studied the specific cinematic market, identifies this dynamic. He calls it the new face pattern.
The new face pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this niche industry, the audience doesn't just want a polished, confident performance. They want to be invited into the initiation process. They want to witness what Fornander calls a dawning self-awareness.
So it's actual character development. Playing out across multiple commercial releases, we see her taking on these highly specific, varied acting roles. Like, she plays an office worker tangled in an illicit romance with her boss.
Right.
She plays a teacher. She plays a student navigating these incredibly intense, coercive, dramatic scenarios.
And by placing her in those intense scenarios, the studios were giving the audience new facets of her vulnerability to explore. The viewer gets to watch her gradual acceptance of these darker, more complex on-screen depths.
It creates this profound illusion of intimacy.
Exactly. The audience feels like they're actively participating in her evolution. They're acting almost as silent guardians or confidants.
Okay, hold on. I need to challenge this whole psychological transformation idea.
Okay, let's hear it.
We are talking about a highly lucrative, mass-produced, mature idol industry here. Are we maybe over-intellectualizing this a bit? Like, is this authentic vulnerability we are seeing, or is this just an incredibly brilliant, cynical marketing trope?
That's the big question.
Right. Are consumers actually buying into a profound psychological journey? Or is the studio just weaponizing the appearance of fear to sell tapes to a demographic that fundamentally wants to feel powerful and in control?
See, that is the exact tension that makes her such a brilliant case study. It actually doesn't matter if her nervousness was a genuine physiological reaction to being a 17-year-old on a film set, or if she was simply a phenomenal actress executing a calculated studio directive.
It works either way.
Exactly. The genius of the marketing is that it completely blurs the line between reality and performance.
So the ambiguity itself is the product.
Precisely. In a highly artificial, brightly lit cinematic environment, genuine hesitation feels like a crack in the facade. It feels like a secret just for the viewer. When the core demographic sees that, it triggers a protective instinct that gets intertwined with the parasocial bond we talked about earlier.
Wow.
They aren't just consuming media anymore. They feel a sense of ownership over her psychological journey.
They're deeply invested shareholders in the Akira Fubuki startup. They want to see where this company is going to be in 3, 5, or 10 years. They want to ride the wave of this massive, skyrocketing valuation.
Which is what makes her next move so completely jarring and, honestly, so utterly brilliant.
Because the logical next step in entertainment, once you establish that kind of fiercely invested audience, is to monetize them until they're completely exhausted.
Milk it.
You milk the intellectual property dry, you do the sequels, the spin-offs, the eventual desperate comeback tours. But Fubuki reaches the absolute pinnacle of her industry. The encyclopedias literally label her the #1 idol and a super popular queen.
She conquered the mountain.
She entirely conquered it. And then, in December 1997, which is exactly 12 months after her mature video debut, she drops a final photo book.
The title of which is almost painfully perfect.
It's titled So Long.
She literally drops So Long, unplugs the servers, and completely vanishes from the entertainment world. A 12-month lifespan. The startup hits a multi-billion-dollar valuation, and the founder simply dissolves the company and walks into the woods.
I have to be honest, looking at this purely from a business perspective, it feels like an astronomical mistake. The sheer amount of cash she walked away from must have been staggering.
Oh, undeniably.
It defies every basic rule of capitalism to abandon a monopoly at its peak Like, why would anyone do that?
Well, in the short term, you could argue she left millions on the table. But if we analyze this through the lens of long-term myth-making and the economics of scarcity, it is the smartest strategic move she could have possibly made.
Because she froze her image.
Exactly. By exiting at her absolute undeniable zenith, she essentially froze herself in time.
She never had a decline phase.
Never. Think about the life cycle of most media stars. We eventually see them get tired. We see them take bad roles just to pay the bills. We see the desperate pivots to stay relevant on new platforms.
The embarrassing reality TV stints.
Right. But Fubuki gave her audience none of that. She preserved the pristine image of the super popular queen under Amber. And because she stopped creating new supply, the existing massive demand had nowhere to go but backward.
They just had to rewatch the old stuff.
They had to endlessly recirculate her original 12 months of work.
And the commercial records completely validate that theory. Her popularity absolutely did not drop off after she retired. The studios released these massive retrospective compilations years after she vanished. We see the Akira Fubuki special drop in 2000 and the Akira Fubuki DX compilation in 2001.
I mean, selling greatest hits albums for a career that only lasted 365 days, that is a testament to the sheer density of her cultural impact.
It goes far beyond niche video stores, too. Her catalog remains widely available right now, literally decades later. You can log on to global mainstream outlets like Amazon, or walk into Kinokuniya, which is a massive, highly respected Japanese bookstore chain, and buy physical artifacts of this 12-month career from the late 90s.
It's incredible.
She transitioned from a provocative niche model into a permanent, mainstream cultural commodity.
And that kind of retail longevity proves that the demand is completely self-sustaining. The scarcity of her content didn't diminish interest. It acted as a permanent multiplier for its value.
Which naturally brings us to the fans themselves, because this deep dive really wouldn't be complete without looking at the emotional crater she left behind. The materials we reviewed included some deeply personal accounts from early internet users, and is a fascinating window into a bygone era of media consumption.
Oh, absolutely. To really understand this fan perspective, you kind of have to mentally teleport back to the 1990s internet. This is long before algorithms curated your feed and served you endless streams of high-definition content on a platter.
Right. This is the era of dial-up modems, navigating obscure BBS boards, waiting like 5 minutes for a single pixelated image to load.
The painful screeching sound of the modem connecting.
Yes. The internet was a wild, uncharted frontier back then, and for these early users, the web was essentially a specialized tool to hunt for international beauty that would never, ever be broadcast on their local television stations.
The friction involved in finding this content is so key here. Because it took active effort and curation to discover these idols, the attachment fans formed with them was exponentially stronger than how we passively consume, say, TikToks today.
Right. One fan account we looked at explicitly describes having a holy trinity of Japanese idols during this era. The lineup was Jun Kusanagi, Natsuko Tono, and Akira Fubuki.
A holy trinity.
Yeah, just utilizing the phrase holy trinity tells you everything you need to know about the level of reverence we are dealing with here. It's almost like religious devotion.
But the most revealing and honestly the most poignant part of this fan's account is a very specific request they make regarding Fubuki's current whereabouts.
Yes. The fan explicitly states that if anyone happens to track down a modern, current-day photograph of Akira Fubuki, they absolutely refuse to see it. They forbid it.
They are completely terrified of breaking the illusion.
They cite another star from that era, Maria Umino, as a cautionary tale. Apparently, seeing modern photos of Umino aging just shattered the magic for this user. The fan desperately wants to preserve what they call those halcyon times. They want to keep the 1997 version of Akira Fubuki locked in a mental vault forever.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals something incredibly profound about human nostalgia, this intense, almost desperate need to protect her image. It isn't actually about Akira Fubuki, the human being.
Interesting.
But the fan doesn't actually care about her current happiness or her life choices. The nostalgia is entirely about the fan fiercely protecting their own youth.
Wow, so she's basically a mirror.
Exactly. Because her career was so impossibly brief, she acts as an uncontaminated time capsule for the 1990s internet era. When that fan looks at a video or a photo book of Fubuki, they aren't just evaluating a performance. They are viscerally recalling exactly how it felt to be young, logging onto the web in 1996, feeling that sense of discovery and endless possibility.
It's like refusing to watch the gritty, modern reboot of your favorite childhood cartoon. You just will not do it. You don't want the messy, complicated reality of the present to overwrite the perfect sealed magic of your memory.
That's a great comparison.
By disappearing, Fubuki gave her fans the ultimate gift. She allowed them to keep that memory pristine.
No.
She remains forever 17, forever just discovering her own depths, forever locked in that halcyon time.
But you can only deliver that gift if you actually leave. If you stay in the public eye, you age, you change your aesthetic, you make bad career choices, the time capsule gets cracked, and the audience is forced to confront the passage of time. Her exit was the sealant.
So let's zoom out and look at the entire architecture of this story. We started with a 17-year-old debutante who steps into a fiercely competitive, highly saturated industry in October 1996. By leaning into an entirely disruptive physical aesthetic and coupling that with a brilliant marketing strategy focused on her psychological vulnerability, her nervousness, her serialized initiation into complex roles, she completely conquers the market. She becomes the unquestioned queen of a massive industry.
All achieved within a handful of months.
And then 12 months later, she releases a photo book literally called So Long and evaporates, leaving behind a fiercely loyal fan base, a string of retrospective compilations, and a commercial catalog that remains profitable on global mainstream platforms to this very day.
A flawless execution of the economics of scarcity.
So what does this all mean for you? Why should you care about the career arc of a 90s niche in cinema idol? I think Fubuki's story is the ultimate masterclass in the power of knowing when to leave the party. We live in a culture that demands we hold on to every single scrap of success we manage to grab. We are told to grind, to optimize, to squeeze every drop of value out of our moments in the sun. But this narrative proves that sometimes the most lucrative, legendary thing you can possibly do is to recognize your absolute peak, pack up your things, and walk out the door. It is the application of scarcity to your own human presence.
It really forces a massive reevaluation of how we handle visibility in the modern world, which raises a genuinely haunting question, I think.
What's that?
Well, in an era where absolutely everyone documents every mundane second of their lives online, desperately feeding algorithms to avoid slipping into obscurity, is the right to be forgotten actually the ultimate luxury?
Oh, that is a fascinating thought. Could an Akira Fubuki even exist today?
I really don't think so. Between smartphone cameras, facial recognition, and massive digital footprints, engineering a perfect, untraceable disappearance is nearly impossible now. We have traded the ability to become enduring myths for the cheap dopamine of constant, fleeting relevance. By denying the world access to her decline, she achieved a kind of immortality that modern technology has essentially made extinct.
You can't be a time capsule if you never leave the present. Something to chew on the next time you feel the overwhelming urge to post just one more update to prove you're still here. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.